P&G does a great job of developing marketers who are both brand people and shopper people. They send them intentionally on rotations. Often those rotations involve coming to Northwest Arkansas. But that makes them unusual in the supplier community to intentionally train people like that in both brand and shopper. The other reason that P&G is so different from other suppliers in the shopper community is that they have these gargantuan budgets. It's just to work on Tide or, I'll say the bad word, Pampers. To work on Tide or Pampers is to be entitled to budgets that I can't even dream of at Del Monte. So P&G is a little bit unusual. In fact, I'd kind of like to know, let me just sort of get my sense of who's still left here in the audience, the brave, we happy few, we band of brothers and sisters. Raise your hand if you are working for a CPG company. Okay. If you're working for an agency. Okay. If you're working for like a vendor here that serves those populations. A few of you. Okay. That's good to understand. Well, I would consider my talk here a bit of a palate cleanser before some heavier content that's going to come later. We're going to talk about ROI, and we've got some people who are a lot more experienced than I am in measuring return on investment, and so I'm a little bit of a fun thing before you get to them. But I promise that you will leave this talk with some practical things to talk to others in your organization who are maybe they didn't go have the P&G experience and they aren't multidisciplined. I'm going to need some water before we're done because you do that again. Anyway, I hope you have some very practical things. I've got 5 things to share with you by the time we leave. I'm going to set this right on top of the company switch. Let's just see what happens. Ha-ha. Okay, that's good. Mine's all about internal effectiveness in your organizations. Shopper marketing budgets are getting hammered. And that's probably because we've got a lot of companies that are doing zero-based budgeting. They're just more aggressive return on investment requirements from owners. My company is owned by a Filipino investor. Here's the funny story. So this Filipino investor owns a company that licensed the Del Monte brand name into the Philippine and its contiguous markets around it. And as Del Monte Foods went through a series of purchases and selling and buying, the Filipino licensee came back and bought the home company. So we got a lot of people who are owners in this business who are really expecting a lot higher ROI, and it's hammering shopper marketing budgets. And brands now are being squeezed by private label, right? I mean, and so it's like if you don't have a brand that is supported by advertising, shopper marketing, etc., you're probably not going to have a brand for long. And since, as Julie said earlier in the conversation, shopper marketing is a team sport, I'm going to assert that it's the internal people in your organization who may not have your set of experiences, be you a brand person or a shopper person, who are probably the most important people to have on your team. And I've got 2 messages that I will begin and end the talk with. Number 1, shopper marketers and brand marketers need to help each other. And the second thing is that a great shopper program often is really the way to the win. But I'm going to lean back on like a 1980s book. But shopper marketers are from Mars, and brand marketers are from Venus. And I know because I've kind of been both, and that's the first part of what I want to tell you is a little bit of my story. But before I get to that, you are not a millennial if you can identify anybody on that picture on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. I'm just curious. Can anybody recognize that album cover? I should pause. There was a thing called an album. It was like about... Anybody recognize the album cover? Oh, yes, thank you. Beautiful. So this is a quick story about 2 guys who, from completely different musical genres, who found a way to make some great music together. Dan Fogelberg is like the, what's what I'm looking for? He's a, like a mellow rock guitarist and tenor with this beautiful voice. If you went to a wedding anytime between 1980 and the 2000, you heard probably a Dan Fogelberg song being sung by somebody at a wedding. And Tim Weisberg is the world's best jazz rock fusion flute player. And if you listen to one of their albums or the other ones, you'd go, these cats do not play in the same playground. But when Tim showed up to play flute on Dan's album, they hit it off as buds, and they actually made this album called Twin Sons of Different Mothers. It went to number 8 on the album list. I need to stop. There's a thing called an album? No. Anyway, it was super successful. About 18 years later, they'd toured together and done stuff together, and neither one was as popular as they were before. They decided, let's go back and make another album. And see, the idea was these two kind of shaggy-faced guys, sort of, kind of, maybe if you squinted, looked like each other. They just knew that they made great music together, right? And so they called their first album Twin Sons of Different Mothers. But as they reflected and as they aged over the years, they realized we don't really kind of look like each other anymore. We still make great music together. Let's call the second album No Resemblance Whatsoever. And it's my setup. Brand marketers and shopper marketers, is it twin sons of different mothers? Is it no resemblance whatsoever? And I think what we'll see is, in the end, shopper marketers and brand marketers need to help each other. And secondly, often, a great shopper program is the way to the win. Oh, I have this little clicker in my pocket that I've got to press in order to make anything happen. So, okay. Beautiful. So, I want to quickly tell you my story. I don't have an FE. I've been told words that begin with F, but I do not have an FE. So, I've been doing shopper marketing work for a number of years, beginning with the highly intimidating Julie Walker as my client. And I have ended up, after many years of doing interesting things, in Del Monte Foods. Great Foods, owned by a Filipino owner, who expects a pretty high degree of return. Anyway, so I'm the guy in the shopper marketing world who tends to advocate a little bit for creativity and kind of leadership and come up with something new we haven't done before, right? So, like the one that's flashing up there is a sign that you would maybe not normally see in the plastic fruit cup aisle. You might see it in the alcohol aisle and the spirits aisle, because they can afford to do these things that are tremendously expensive and cost a lot of money to install. But I thought were important to try to do when we were introducing new adult plastic fruit cups. You probably didn't know there were such things. Go buy them when you leave today. But anyway, completely not supported by any insights, but I just thought it was really cool, and we sort of needed to draw some attention that could only happen when you had stuff flashing and moving at retail. I'm the guy who tries to do a new adaptation, a new exploration of how to do social media on a Walmart end cap TV. I need to pause for a minute. There's a thing called a Walmart end cap TV. It was right before they killed co-op. No, they actually had it a little longer than that, and then they killed it. But the Walmart end cap TV had never before had social media content in it. I had this vision of people standing in front of the Walmart end cap TV, and it's green bean casserole time. As you all know, that's the place where Del Monte makes a lot of money. And they were going to send their twist ideas for green bean casserole. I make mine with bacon. I make mine with red pepper flakes, whatever it is that they do. And we got really, really, really close and did something that I couldn't support with insights. I didn't have a whole lot of backup to do, but it sounded like it was really cool, and we thought we'd have something fun. We called it This Is My Twist, Share Your Holiday Twist. All these social media things actually happened at the end cap for the first and last time in a Walmart end cap TV program. I'm the guy who likes to build partnerships that can kind of come out of nowhere. Not really supported by insights, but still sound like a pretty cool idea and able to get me to meet some goals of my sales team members. So I'm the guy who comes up with Build a Better Breakfast, and we partnered with Lendls and Milk and Feeding America, and we somehow got some people to believe that you had a bagel and a fruit cup, it was a better breakfast than some other things that you might have, which happens to be true. In other words, I'm the kind of guy that really annoys the brand managers. Because I don't do all those great things that these wonderful people from Kimberly-Clark do. I just kind of look for space that'll help our sales team win and then go make creative things happen that haven't happened before. In my world, for 3 or 4 years of Del Monte has been in shopper marketing, doing these kinds of things. Here's my new world. I'm currently a senior brand manager at Del Monte Foods. They asked me to come and help resuscitate some product lines that needed some help. And so moving away from fun, creative ideas that give me a lot of energy to come up and talk about with people like you, I end up looking at this kind of crap all day long. You know, I'm doing shared tracking every month. I'm analyzing ROI for trade versus shopper versus online video. I'm looking at shipment and consumption analysis of base versus incremental volume. And I'm looking at category management with Nielsen metrics on data structures. That's just so awesome. I'm seeing a different part of the total marketing picture as a person who's now got responsibility for brands. And I'm realizing that shopper marketers are from Mars and brand managers are from Venus. They may be twin sons of different mothers and making great music together, which is the whole point, or they may have no resemblance whatsoever. And unless you're in a big organization like Procter & Gamble, which intentionally cross-fertilizes people from headquarters brand jobs to field sales team shopper marketing jobs, you just don't know how to talk to the other person in your thing because we're so very different. What it felt like for me as I plopped down into this world was kind of what the characters in Avatar felt like, okay? It's like I had been thinking of what a brand manager would think and do through a naive lens. But I ended up being in a brand manager's body. Strangely, it did not look any better than the body that I had before, except it was a year older. And I sort of dropped myself into that brand manager's body, and I lived to be here, but I'm seeing things through the whole experience that I would like to share in my last few minutes with you. And I realized that I'm the guy, as a shopper marketer, who really frustrates the brand managers because I try to pursue creative things that just have a lot of ways to help my salespeople win. So I would say that if your company doesn't intentionally rotate people through brand and shopper assignments, then there's likely no institutional understanding between these two functions anywhere below a vice president level. And I say institutional understanding. I mean, it's built into the system. So I would like to provide you with just a couple more slides. A study in contrast, what we think and want as brand managers versus shopper marketers. I'm not saying that either of these perspectives is better or worse, but there's an old sort of proverb, and it goes like this. 10 blind men come to an elephant, and they walk up and touch different parts of the elephant. Raise your hand if you heard this metaphor before. Okay, most of you haven't. So the 10 blind men walk up, touch part of the elephant. One of the blind men walks up and he touches the, what's the nose thing called? The trunk, yes. And he says, oh, an elephant is like a snake. It's sort of round and moves in like a tube. And the other blind man comes up and reaches the great big leg. And he says, oh, an elephant is like a tree. It's just big and immobile and, yeah. Well, you see where I'm going at. None of these 10 blind people could really fully experience what an elephant was like. They just touched their own part of it. And what this is like is this is like getting sight on a blind person who can then see what the elephant really is. So it's not like one of these columns is right, the other one's wrong. They're just part of the total truth that I would want as what I have to tell you, just are worth knowing. For brand marketers, metrics keep me employed. So Only the results we can measure are the ones that mattered. What do I mean by metrics keep me employed? Okay, we're in marketing together, right? Dirty little secret. Half of marketing doesn't work at all. And if you're a brand manager and you've got crappy numbers, you've got to be able to have some metrics that say, yeah, but I've got the insights, I've got these metrics, this thing worked right, that didn't, to keep you from getting fired. Brand managers, here's a phrase I'd come up with: no brand manager ever got a promotion for accurately predicting the demise of his brand. So if your brand is in demise, you better have some facts and figures, because not only are you not getting a promotion, you're probably getting the other thing that happens when your brand is in demise. So results, metrics often keep them employed. But from us, we say, hey, good metrics are elusive. I'm saying us, I'm back in my old shopper marketing shoes. And an excessive focus on measurables kind of limits great ideas. What's the truth? Well, they're both true. My brand stands alone as I'm the brand marketer. In consumer communication, it has to be about my brand. That's why I have a budget for my brand. That's why I'm doing this thing. Brand managers, here's the secret: they are paid to build the brands. And they have a P&L. So you better be sure that if there's money, it supports their brand. But here in shopper marketing world, we really understand that often brands work together. And it's about solutions for shoppers. We've heard a lot of that today already. For a CPG company, shopping is about solving problems for a shopper. And rarely does she do that with one brand alone. Over here on the brand side, there's a focus on consumer awareness and purchase intent. That's a lot of what traditional advertising will do, no matter what the media is that you put it in. But over here on shopper side, there's a focus on retailer decisions for distribution, features, displays, and just frankly, moving cases, right? And we as shopper marketers are often necessarily focused on the moving cases. Which one of those is true? Well, they're both true in their way. It's the way you experience the whole elephant. Over here on the brand side, a brand manager looks and says, I've got total control over most advertising variables in messaging consumers. Let me say that a different way. When they pay for a 30-second spot, they can completely control what's in that 30-second spot, right? When they pay for an ad, a print ad, when they pay for a digital display, they can pretty much control that. When you get over here into the shopper world, you've got limited control over shopper activation variables and messaging shoppers. Anybody ever had 100% execution in a store on the thing that you sent? No, it never happens, right? And especially when I tried to do that end cap thing, the end cap TV with the twist idea for your green bean casserole, with integrating social media, believe me, it was out of control. We had people suggesting all kinds of ways to do a twist to your green bean casserole that you do not want to think about. Over here on the brand side, products are thought of in isolation. This may be the most important one. Products are thought of in isolation with a focus on individual claims and features. I can't tell you, I've never been in a brand manager's office at Del Monte in which they have, where their shelf on their cabinet is full of their products and a whole bunch of competitive products like it is on a grocery shelf. And that's a shame, because products compete on a crowded shelf with a focus on relative price and packaging. There's a myopia about brand management that just cannot be denied. And we know that these brands live in retail in a crowded space with competitive pricing and packaging. Okay, well, maybe you've identified with some of the differences, this study and contrast of what we think and want from shopper marketers versus brand marketers. I've got 5 things that I would think you could use tomorrow. And I did notice just before I came up that the wonders of cut and paste allowed me to put the very same bullet points for number 4 as I did for number 3. Just think of how much quicker the prep work would have been if I just would have cut and pasted the same slide on every page. So I just didn't want you to be the first one to notice that and be whispering to your neighbor. Okay. So anyway, I hope that these provide you with maybe just some practical things you could go and do as you relate to other people in your organization who don't share your same function. So number one, advocate store and shelf competitive context. This gets to that last bullet point of the last slide. There's a myopia in brand management. They just see their product standing alone. They just see that can of green beans floating into the, up in the heavens with the blue sky and that lovely green label, and it's just all they see. But you need to help advocate store and shelf competitive context. Start from the shelf backwards. Help them understand what does it really look like next to its competitors. We had a disastrous thing that we did 5 years ago at Del Monte. We changed that green label of our canned veg to a beautiful bluish sky color that looked exactly like Great Value. And we lost 30% of sales literally in the first month, which we had to fix and we're still recovering from. But the second bullet point, be a reliable source of information about competition in store. I know you think the brand managers have plenty of time based on what their remit is as compared to yours, but believe me, they're really busy. And if they're too busy, don't let yourself get too busy to get information to them about competition in stores. If you're not getting out into stores either, get out into stores. But when you do, make sure you're communicating back to your brand managers because they're just too busy. Good or bad, right or wrong. Number two, proselytize retailer analytics. God, that's a long word. Be an advocate. Share the good news. Proselytize retailer analytics. We here in Walmart, Sam's Club land, we're spoiled with a retailer who loves to share data. It comes with a price, but they do love to share data, right? That's not true of all of our shopper marketing brethren and sistren. But be a proselytizer, a sharer of the good news about retailer analytics. You need to provide alternative insights from store data to give perspective to the syndicated data. How many of you have ever seen a Nielsen or IRI marketing mix model report? Ooh, marketing mix model report. It is a standard linear regression that has as its inputs a lot of information that is wrong. This I would get up on my soapbox and talk about for hours. But we can show some things on sales lift that you just can't show with a marketing mix linear regression model. Second, find metrics for KPIs that won't be measured any other ways. I loved what the Kimberly-Clark people said just 10 minutes ago. They said that some of those many arrows that they had going upward, which I was really envious over, all those upwards going arrows. And more than one of those would never have been found if you was reading Nielsen numbers, okay? So I'm sure that they were a help by bringing those metrics back, and it's stuff that they could only find because they were seeking for other ways to measure the KPIs than the ones that they were able to get from the syndicated data. And I'm going to tell you that the syndicated data is the equivalent of the Bible in brand managers' minds. It's just hard to talk somebody out, refute their belief in the syndicated data as much as it's hard to talk somebody out of their belief in their holy book. It's just hard. So you've got to proselytize. You've got to share some good news about retailer analytics. Number three, champion key customers, possessive S apostrophe, champion key customers, shoppers. Help brand people see shoppers more than consumers. We've heard more than once today, consumers different from shoppers. Some people believe it, some people don't. Just help them see that as much as you can, because you're seeing it a lot in the work that you do. And press for customer-specific insights in every research project. I can't tell you how easy this is to do and how rarely it seems to be done. When the company's going to spend some money on research that's going to lead to insights, if they're not doing it with some subsegments like club shoppers versus mass shoppers, high-low grocery shoppers versus Walmart superstore shoppers. It is not usually all that expensive to raise the N in a survey research to the point that you can get where you can get crosstabs or pivot tables that show that data. Just that's one way that you can champion key customers, shoppers. And then press for customers customers, that's it. Number 4, reset the annual planning clock to retailer time. Reset the annual planning clock to retailer time. I'm in a business that what we call a pack business. Right here, this a pack business. It's not about elephants. It is, we pack fruits and vegetables every year. And despite our desire that Mother Nature get those fruits and vegetables done at a different time of year so we can coincide with other parts of the marketing calendar, they tend to come out of the ground about the same time every year. We're a pack business, and all of our annual planning is based around the pack. How many green beans did we get out of the ground? It's because it's the pack, right? And so we have to really fight to turn the annual planning clock into a place that it actually works for when Walmart and our other big customers want to be hearing about our new products, et cetera, et cetera. My point is, if you help reset the annual planning clock to what works for your key retailers, you're going to be doing a great service to your brand manager counterparts. Last one. Become the sales and brand whisperer. If you ever saw The Horse Whisperer, the idea was to someone who sort of stands between and helps both sides understand each other. Over-communicate both ways to make sure both sales and brand respect each other's challenges. And it is a good thing when there's respect for what the challenges are for both functions. And then understand and advocate day in, day out business and seasonal spikes to revenue and profit objectives. What do I mean? Day in, day out business is everyday sales. Seasonal spikes, whatever, you know your business a whole lot more than I ever will. But for us, it all comes around back to school and then holiday, when people are making casseroles and that kind of thing. But I tell you, I was in sales meetings as a shopper marketing person for 4 years, and all we talked about was win the holiday, win the holiday, win the holiday. And there's 50 weeks other than the holidays where we could be making some money if we just got a little more understanding of the retail situation. I'm nearly done. I want to choose one more slide. This is a closing story. This is the airport road at Cold Bay, Alaska. Raise your hand if you've been to Cold Bay, Alaska. I have not either. But I saw this a couple of weeks ago just in looking around at what I was doing, just what's going on in the world. And in Cold Bay, Alaska, it is the site of the world's one and only hovercraft that delivers the mail. That's right. Because what happens is this hovercraft has to go over from King Cove. You drive up from King Cove, you get to the hovercraft site, you go across to get to the airport. It's the only way to get to the airport. It's the world's only operational daily service hovercraft delivering the mail. What's at issue here in this situation? Hopefully we'll give you one more thing, maybe another story to tell somebody who you want to help see the world your way, so you can help each other win, because shopper programs are a way to win. There are two sides in this issue. The idea is that it's really not convenient to take the hovercraft when it gets cold in Alaska. It gets really cold in Alaska. And the only medical facilities in this area are over at the airport. So if it's like 50-mile-per-hour winds and 15-foot waves, and you've got to get from King Cove to Cold Bay, you really don't want to be going on the hovercraft. But this is a national wildlife refuge, and that's important, yet the medical needs of the people who live in King Cove are important too. These two sides have been fighting for 30 years over this road. Somebody came up with the idea of a land swap and said, hey, look, okay, we know it's important to have a site here where the birds can fly and the animals can do what animals do. Why don't we give you this patch of land here in exchange for the part of the road? And it looks like the net of it is they're going to solve their problem by understanding each other and figuring out how to make that work. My point is, two groups got to find a way to help each other, and that's true of shopper marketing and brand managers as it's true for these two people, these two groups. And secondly, sometimes a great shopper program is the way to win. And I thank you for listening.
Any questions?
Question, what happens if you turn the...
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Thanks, Alicia.
Yeah, so thanks, Mike. I love the conversation around the two different functions. What would you do differently, knowing more about the brand space? What would you do differently in the shopper space?
I'd look at that last slide. I'd do more of that, right? But I think of those things, I would make sure that I over-communicated with brand people and speaking their language. Yeah, so that when the pressure time came for them to either do or not do my program or anniversary the idea for something that I started out without great provable insights or metrics, that they would sort of give the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, and I think just being sensitive to the way they think about things and communicating with them in the way that you have unique value will help make that happen.